I think people are waiting, so hold on. I'll introduce.
Yep.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining our May 2017 webinar on social engineering. My name is Jeff Yeagley from Compass IT Compliance, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we go ahead and get started, just want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping rules. We've muted everybody's line that's live on the webinar today to prevent any type of background noise. So if you have any questions, because there will be a Q&A session, there's a conversation or a chat box on the left-hand side of your screen where you can go ahead and put those questions in, and we can answer them if time permits at the end of the presentation. Second thing, or third thing rather, a copy of the presentation will be emailed out to everybody who registered for the webinar. We are also recording the webinar, and a link to that recording will be provided as well. So feel free to pass that on to anybody who might have wanted to attend but was not able to. And also it will be posted to our website and the recording to our YouTube channel. So just a couple of quick housekeeping things before we go ahead and get started. Now I'd like to introduce today's presenter. Derek Morris is one of our senior IT auditors here at Compass IT Compliance. He's going to present today on social engineering and just some of the challenges that are out there. And it seems like every day that we turn on the news or read an article on the internet or whatever the case might be, it revolves around some type of new phishing scheme or ransomware attack or whatever the case might be. So what we want to do is really just kind of share with you some of the different pieces that we're seeing out there, and then ultimately educate you so you can educate your team of employees so that you can better protect your organization. So without further ado, I'm going to quiet down and I'm going to turn it over to Derek to go through the presentation. Take it away, Derek.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Derek. Here are the topics we're going to cover today. A little brief agenda. We're going to go over the overview of what social engineering is, cover some of the more well-known type of attacks in social engineering, definitely get into some fishing and spearfishing, not the ones in the ocean, and some whaling as well. We're going to cover too what we see lately. You're going to be well aware of it. It has been all over the news lately. We'll also cover a little bit more in depth of what we're seeing, that how phishing is really getting better and tougher to be aware that it's happening to you. Also, we'll go over a couple tips, help you guys minimize the damage, what you can do to your employees, how you can help them be more aware and see what's going on. It's really part of general security awareness, and it's what you want to drill home with them to help your company be safer. My first bullet here, it's pretty typical. Here's what the definition of social engineering is. It's using deception and manipulation of humans, people, individuals to get information to use it for fraudulent purposes or malicious purposes for that matter. It allows them to get around the traditional security procedures, policies, technology, and layers that you have in your company. From an IT perspective, an IT security technical perspective, having all these tools, these gadgets, these scanners, these gateways for people to get through can all be circumvented using social engineering. It's different than the traditional hacking. It's more, it is hacking the human. I was trying to think of a good example, and what I could think of was a really old one was a Trojan horse. The Greeks were battling the city of Troy, and Troy had great technology to keep the walls and the city covered, and the Greeks built a horse as a fake trophy, left it. Troy opened the door, dragged it in, and inside the horse, all the Greeks. They took down the whole city at that time. So people are always the weakest link within information security. It's because we're people, we think. Tools are X, Y, Z. People have feelings, emotions, so it's tougher to help control the people. This is not 1984. Big Brother is watching, but still people can circumvent certain things. No matter how great the technology that you have in place, you can have it all. All it takes is one person to bring it all crashing down. There are cases that you're going to hear about in the news. It only took one person to install some ransomware, which took down numerous hospitals over in the UK, and as well as other companies across the world. So think of your business like your house. This is a good one. Jeff gave me this one. You lock all the doors, the bulkhead, deadbolt them all. That's the technology. But the one thing you forgot to lock was the windows. Those are the people. So it's tougher to lock those down and remember to lock those down, especially when you're getting social engineered. And why are they so popular? It's tried and true. It's been years and years and years people have been using social engineering tactics to break in because they work. That's why they continue to use them. There was a great line I heard. Social engineering attacks are well known and understood, but it makes them no less effective. They still work. So I thought that was rather interesting. It's been years since these have been going on, and yet they still continue to work. I'm not sure many things out there that continue to work in that manner. Some of the attacks for social engineering. The top one here, dumpster diving. This is more, think back when companies were more paper-based. Printouts, big, huge reams of paper, the green and white line paper, lots of information on those. May not be remembered to be shredded, so they throw them in the dumpster. Now, what people would do, nefarious people in the dark with their black hoodies on, would go jump in the dumpster, pull those out, see what sensitive information's on them, go back, do some work and try to peel out what they needed to find, and go ahead and try to get into that company. Not used much anymore. There's a great scene in a movie called Sneakers back in like the 90s, I think it was, with Robert Redford. Pretty good hacker type movie if you're really kind of a geek like me. They kept stealing the trash from this one individual who worked for a company, came back to their lair, dumped all the trash out on a table, and started sifting through it to get information and details about him so they could make a badge to get in where he worked. It's a really interesting scene because it was messy work. Other things we see nowadays, it's less likely that's going to happen where you go to the smoking area outside of a building. Call it more of a social gathering area. You'll see piggybacking or tailgating. So some people doing pen tests like to do these is find that area and look and see if the door is propped open. So people who go outside and eat lunch, or even if they still smoke out there, get in the mix, act as if. They may look the part, they may dress the part, and even some of their behaviors may be similar to those people out there. And what that'll do is, get those people comfortable with that person, like, oh, he belongs here. And then go back in when they're done, and that person will just tailgate right along, piggyback right along. This is not traditional tailgating at a Patriots game. It's getting in there, following someone in, and then once they're in there, they can do what they want. Usually these pen testers have a plan, or these hackers have a plan to go and try to do something else while they have physical access to the location. Some of the other things we're seeing that are pretty interesting, I find these, is device leave behind. I also heard it called a media dump. I used to see it with CDs and DVDs. Now they do it with USB keys. Now, really interesting ones I've seen, they'll put a label on a USB key and put salary information, payroll. Now, what that would do, or even something really on towards a negative light, layoffs or reduction in force paperwork on these USB keys. At the same time that label's on there, the USB key itself will have malicious software that instantly installs itself and calls back to the mothership to allow whatever hacker to get in. So you just bypassed all the security that you have to prevent any hackers getting in just by someone plugging one of these into their machine. Other ones are vishing. This is vishing with a V for voice. I've also heard it called pretexting. I find this less likely to work, in my humble opinion, because nowadays people call up, hey, your credit card company will call up and say, you may have been hacked. We had a breach. We need to verify your information. Is this Jeff Yeagley? Yes. And can you give me your social security number so I can verify this, at least the last four, maybe your birth date? People are less likely to fall for that because it's more well known that these junk calls come in all the time, and we're kind of accustomed to saying no and hang up. Again, now we go back to number one, phishing. Phishing emails in particular that get to your inbox and want you to do something. So nowadays, what we're seeing, I'm going to go into this a lot more later, is the use of social media is giving away way too much information. TMI. People can, scour social media for information about you, LinkedIn, put things together, relationships together, and use that to tailor a phishing email to you to get you to bite the bait. Click on that link, download that application, or open this file, which then allows them in. Again, circumventing all the security controls you had in place. So phishing, in the past, it was just this brutal email with bad spelling, improper grammar, uppercase, lowercase in the middle of sentences, run-on sentences, and they would blast these emails out, hundreds and thousands of them, and see if somebody took. It was, spray it all out there and see if somebody, bought the bait. So in those, they'd have a fake website or a bad attachment. As AV scanners and spam gateways, got more sophisticated, they would catch these, but these would get through. They may almost even look like legitimate emails from companies. So you'd see things like UPS tracking info, download from this link. Here's the invoice for your order. It would contain a bad, Word file that you would then infect your machine with. And then the links would be something close to what I have here, Bank of America, where if you bank with Bank of America, it might look legit, but you're missing that F in the middle, and it kind of redirects you to a terrible site that's asking you to verify your information, and they're just collecting it on the back end to use to get into your legitimate Bank of America account. What we're seeing today too now is we're starting to see more text messages. Text messages may hit your phone with some information that you can then click a link on your smartphone and then go to that browser. It's a similar type of way to get in, but they're tougher to see if they're bogus. On your phone, it's just a text message. People have in text messaging have terrible grammar and short, choppy words that mean different things. Like my last slide, TMI. So they seem really creative trying to get to you. Again, this phishing, all these attempts allow that attacker in without having to even go through some of your real fancy security tools that you may have in place. So the next few slides here, we got a couple about what these phishing emails look like and what to look for. You'll see all these highlighted arrows. These are things that really stand out. I've seen this in different manners. We have the password provided in an email with this document. So, it must mean that this document is really secure. So here's the document, here's the password for you. Again, you need to really take a look and see if you're expecting something like this, especially if that email address that it comes from doesn't quite look right. It's something odd about it, and you'll know. I mean, it's a matter of, you have to look for it, but that's what this is all about, teaching you what to look for. The next one, this one right off the bat, you see the big, beautiful Amazon.com icons, and it looks and feels like it's from Amazon. Again, at the top, you'll see the from field. It's a non-Amazon email address. It may seem like it is, but it's not really an Amazon address. That's one indicator. The action it wants you to take here is click on this link. So in Windows, I think even in Mac, others may be able to verify that for me, but if you just take your mouse and put over that link, just put it right over, don't click on it, you'll see it pop out either at the bottom, maybe towards the bar at the bottom, and it'll show you where that link is really going. You could put something completely legit as the syntax you see, but in order for it to go somewhere, you have to put it in the back-end code, and that's what this will pull out for you. You'll see in this example, it goes to redirect dot something. That That's not legit. That's them trying to get you to drive that action to that site. This one, these are getting better. You'll see these maybe from not such big dogs as Amazon, but other smaller type companies. They want you to order something, so they'll craft these marketing emails. Now, that gives another vector for these phishing people to use and try to get you to click on something. These come out every once in a while for different, smaller marketing websites. Keep an eye on that from field is really, that's where it starts. So now spearfishing and whaling. Now these are what we're seeing more and more lately. These are really subcategories of fishing in general. These are real targeted fish attempts. These are crafted to steal something very specific from an individual. Now, the information they gather from that individual could be social media. It could also come from them calling into your company and asking questions to somebody that they may not realize they're giving information about you, where you are, what you're doing to that person. So that will then be used as bait to get the click or the response they want to get something to happen. That spearfishing is that. Now there's an even more subcategory that's even a smaller target is whaling. Now this happens to celebrities quite a bit, but also happens in the business world to C-level executives. Now, if there are any C-level executives on here, I'm not picking on you, but C-level executives are very successful. They've climbed the ranks, they've got to where they are because they're good at what they do. And a small amount of an ego may come into play with that. So playing into the person's ego can add to the bait for the email. The emails may look like they come from colleagues. They may even look like they reference procedures of the company, whether it be transfer money and who is the person that does it and how they communicate together. I have seen amazing ones of these for prior life. I've seen it. A president got an email. The president's name was Stephen. Everyone called him Steve. His financial officer was Jessica, but they communicated together as Jess. So an email went from Jess, it looked like, to Steve, and it looked completely legit that he was asking her to transfer X thousands of dollars to an account. And even at the bottom of that, it had sent from an iPhone. Jess had an iPhone. It's just an amazing crafted attempt to have that. Luckily, they had controls in place that they would use if this, not specifically if social engineering happened, but how they would go about transferring money and who did what. Multiple levels of authentication and authorization to make something like that happen. So you can see that if it's successful, the yield is a nice monetary amount, and the impact can be bigger. I mean, this could bring bad reputation not only to the executives of that company that it affected, but the reputation of the company. Most companies nowadays, reputation is everything to them. Word of mouth is huge, so this could really have an impact. That's why this CEO fraud, and even other, not just CEO itself, but C-level itself, is really on the increase. I mean, you see some of these numbers, billions of dollars in losses for just the U.S. alone. I mean, how many other companies in Europe and across Asia have significant impact as well? So that billions can really climb. So what we're seeing lately, now there's big crazy one going on, the Wannacry ransomware. Now ransomware in general is a application that is installed. It then goes through your machine or even your network, grabs your files, doesn't care what they are, encrypts them so you cannot see them. Those files may have programs related to them, so now the programs don't work because they're all encrypted and the programs cannot communicate properly. Now ransomware can, in most cases, get into your company through phishing emails. Now this last one that we're seeing, Wannacry, I just want to clarify that I've read numerous articles that it did not start like all others through phishing emails. It's actually came from a big bad vulnerability and improper security policies on firewalls at various companies. So it got in a more hacking manner. but these in most cases will come through a phishing email. Ransomware has grown just massively. I mean, unfortunately, I think we haven't seen the end of it. These people out there are asking for money in Bitcoins to get you the decryption key. I mean, a bunch. There's so many controls you can put in place to help you get around this, and that's why you'd come to a company like Compass IT to help you, identify these things and put them in place. So phishing is still number one. I mean, ransomware is growing, but phishing is just so much. It's just an email. It's really easy to do. I heard another statistic. I thought this was wild, that 77% of all attacks on a company are phishing emails. So the other 20-some% are these, lesser known attacks or lesser impactful attacks that they see coming in. We do see that people are aware of phishing, yet a bit of overconfidence, I think, is taking hold, because people will still click. They know it's a bad site, and they click, and they want to make sure it's a bad site. I don't know what goes through the thinking of that, but in some cases it might even be 2 clicks or 3 clicks. It really is wild. Phishing tests we run, on an average, we're seeing a click rate of 40 to 50%. So you're sending out 300-400 emails, you're getting 200 clicks. I mean, that's a pretty significant amount. It comes down to really training people to identify what's bad and what's not. Here's what we can do to help. You need to build a culture of security in your organization. This really, because it's in the news a lot, is really sitting in the faces of C-level people who would really take this thinking and this culture and push it down through their company. So we're seeing it happen more, a little slowly, but it's happening. It's really empowering your employees to know what's happening, not having to do security on a day-to-day basis aside from their job, but just to be aware. How many people didn't know how to fix cars before cars were more prevalent? As time goes on, people, figured out little ways in what's going on with their car. It just, comes into the mainstream thinking more often. It's up to, if you see something, say something. I mean, you hear it all the time. Unfortunately, this started way back in 9/11 and all these awful terrorist things going on. Be vigilant. If you see something, say something. And yes, it's not as, life or death in a company, but, if you see something, go tell IT, go tell IT security, whoever you think is responsible for that. Don't just sit there and keep quiet and close the box and move on with your day, because it could affect more than just you. Policies and procedures, they're in place for a reason. Let's enforce those. Let's make sure people are aware of what they can divulge from information classification ways. Sensitive information, confidential information, you should not be divulging that over the phone to someone outside of the company. You need to really make sure that if there are needs for that proper protocol is taking place. You're verifying who this person is and making sure that they're legitimate, really. Now, some tips, really, really good tips for emails, phishing emails, and really even on the phone if that's the case. Think and wait. If you get an email, a phishing email comes in, give it a minute. Give it an hour. Think about it. Let it wait. There's studies that show the longer you wait, the less likely you are to be a victim of that. Whether it's making you call someone, do an action, download something, for some reason, just sitting and waiting makes you less likely to do that. Some of those things too, I think of, if you have a big decision to make in your life, I've told you sleep on it, and all of a sudden, things become clearer. So the same thing. Think and wait. Things might show up a little more clearer in your life for avoiding this phishing attempt. So timing too, huge thing, timing. If you're not expecting an invoice from UPS, why would you open and download the invoice from UPS? Really, it's simple when you say it that way. Around Christmas time, you see a lot of phishing attempts for those tracking, delivery notice emails. That timing is close, but you need to be really sure that you're expecting that. And again, go back to the prior bullet. Think and wait. Is it really something? Is it really coming from UPS? Does it really have information in that email that you think is legitimate? And if it at all, call and ask. Ask someone else to take a look. It really is a vigilant type of action to take. If at all, the email's asking you to take any action, especially if it's an action that's a timed action, do it in the next hour, do quickly or lose out. So your suspicion should be peaked. It should be much higher, less likely that it's legitimate. Again, pick up the phone. If it looks like it's from someone else, go see them, walk over to their desk, pick up the phone and ask them, especially if it looks like it's from someone legitimate. I mean, they can really spoof those email addresses to look like it's coming from someone who you think. Again, look at that from field. Look at it carefully. There's certain spellings that you can put in a different way that initially your eyes and your mind might think it's legitimate. That's a big red flag. If it's going to a blast of people, a huge amount of people, there are ways to hide it, but sometimes they don't. It's really obvious. You'll see a huge amount of people. It's probably spam or phishing. Now, if there's ever a link in those emails that anything to click and go to verify, again, suspicion should be raised, but hover over that link to verify that website is legitimate. Does it look odd? Is it trying to send you somewhere that isn't related to that email itself, even related at all to that email? Red flags, all those should be alerts for you. So now, the best way to do this is train your users. There are simulated attempts you can go and sign up for and do. You can contact us. We can do them too. Phone calls, pre-texting, physical access to locations, and emails. They can be crafted really, really nicely to simulate these attempts. The good part about these is you're going to get feedback, numbers, statistics on different things, and actually who did it. That way you can take appropriate action and train those people properly. Let them know that they were a victim, but here's what you can do better. No public shaming for any means. So it's just educate. Tell them about it. Use these simulated attempts. These tools they're getting cheaper and cheaper daily. So use what you can to educate your people, especially even when it comes down to your annual security awareness. Go through situations like this. Show them screenshots of what I just showed you. Here's what to look for. Here's what to do. Think and wait. Is the timing right? Just, reiterate that. Educate. So here's a few links. Definitely the third bullet down you want to check out. We have some awesome blogs. They're educational. They're brief. They're to the point, and they may be able to help you enhance what you may have already within your organization in and around social engineering, other tools and tips. Securing the human, this is a good one. You can sign up for different training and all that with SANS. It's a very good training type of website. And then the good old FBI Internet Crime Center has a bunch of statistics that really, what's hot lately, what's happening lately, and unfortunately, the media is really dialed into this now, so you'll see it on the news as well. Again, that's my name. I'm Derek. Happily with Compass IT Compliance. Check out our website. And I think at this point there are questions, so I'm gonna kick it over to Jeff and see if we have any in queue.
Awesome. Hey, Derek. Thanks so much, man. Great job and great information. And you touched on so many good points, and every time that I kind of moderate these webinars, I always like to add a piece into the end, and maybe that's because I talk too much, I don't know, but I'm going to do it again, and I apologize in advance. But this is such an important topic because the way that organizations are being quote-unquote hacked these days is through people. It's always going to be a situation where people, as Derek mentioned earlier, are the weakest link. In building that culture of security around just empowering your employees just to ask, if something looks strange, ask the next logical question. Because I don't think that anybody who works for an organization gets up in the morning and says, you know what, I think I'm just going to click on a random email today so I can take down my company or cost them hundreds of thousands or possibly millions of dollars, depending. I just don't think people do that. So I think it's just because people are generally trying to be helpful. And I'm not saying don't be helpful. I'm just saying ask the next logical question. So I'm going to share just a quick story with you guys about a situation that happened with me, actually, and just how asking that next logical question really helped out. We're on the state contract for North Carolina. As part of that, we get invited to bid on different things. There's a vendor portal, all that type of stuff. So this is about 6 months ago. I got a phone call that came from a phone number in Philadelphia. The beauty of caller ID is I was able to see where it was coming from. So I answered it, and it was someone who was on the other line, of course, saying that they were with the state of North Carolina vendor portal, and they were looking to update Compass IT Compliance's contact information. So let's just pause right there. What would be the next logical step? If you're just being helpful, you confirm all of that information. And they wanted things like address, phone number, basic type stuff, but federal tax ID, which you can get online. That's not the worst thing in the world. But anyway, they wanted to confirm that information. So if I was going to be helpful, which of course is my goal, I would just answer the question and moved on. But instead I said, this is strange. Why is somebody from Philadelphia calling me about a state contract in North Carolina? So I don't want to say I interrogated the gentleman on the phone, but I asked a lot of questions and asked that he provide verification of his affiliation or working relationship with the state of North Carolina, which he eventually did, and we were able to answer his questions. So anyway, the point of the story is, ask that next logical question. If someone's calling from Philadelphia, representing themselves from being from North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, some other location, if it looks strange, just ask the question. And I explain the situation as, hey, this is why I'm asking. I'm not trying to be difficult, but these are the reasons why. And he understood completely, and everything worked out. But so ask the next logical question. Is somebody trying to follow you into your office building and claiming they forgot their badge? Send them to security. Again, most people will let them in because they're trying to be helpful, right? However, that can be a major disadvantage when you're trying to keep information in your organization secure. So the second thing that I'll kind of share on this, and Derek, feel free to chime in on this, and this is actually kind of going to piggyback into a question that we received, is around security awareness training. Everybody has to go through it. Most compliance requirements mandate that it be done at least on an annual basis. I'm going to make a bold statement and say that if you only do it annually and it's just kind of a watch a 60-minute video on the computer, I don't want to say that you're failing your employees, but you're not setting them up to be successful, I guess is a good way to put it. These threats change all the time. 2 weeks ago, we didn't know anything about Wannacry. Most people probably didn't even know that there was a significant exploit in Microsoft that would allow this to happen. Now it's everywhere. Most people 3 years ago didn't know what ransomware was. Now it's grown by 4,000% or something crazy in the past 3 years. So the point is that the threats change. Don't wait yearly to educate your staff. I'm not saying put them through, like Derek said, a punitive exercise, but test them. Create a quarterly newsletter. Have a company meeting, talk about the latest security threats. We do it, but that's because we're an IT security and compliance firm. But you should do that too to help your organization because, again, people are your weakest link. So I'm going to piggyback that into a question for you, Derek. Sure. How often should organizations be conducting security awareness training?
Yeah, I've seen it in twofold. I've seen it in the formal training biannually, it's twice a year, on that big formal, meaty meeting with all that information for them. And now I've also seen the testing happen more frequently. Staggered patterns, but enough so that people are staying sharp in applying that training that they're receiving, even only every 6 months. So it's a combination, really. Yeah, that's really it is. It's just a combination. Here's the information, and then get tested on it. I mean, it worked in school for most of us, so why would it not work in a company setting?
Great point. This isn't a question. This is kind of a follow-up question that I'm going to ask. In terms of what methods should people use to kind of test their employees? I mean, we obviously already know about the computer-based training, which is great, but what other things can folks use or organizations use to kind of reinforce the points? Is there anything that you would necessarily recommend?
Yeah, the fish attempt simulations, they're fantastic. They're really, they are tailored to maybe things that are hot in the media, popular to the company itself, like, health insurance time, let's sign up and verify your information. Those really drive home the tips to look through things and be more vigilant and ask that next logical question. So those are really hot tools to use.
Cool. Makes sense. Awesome. I think that's really all the questions that we have, Derek. So I'm gonna wrap it up here by first of all saying, thank you very much for taking the time to create the presentation and then present the presentation. I think it's an important topic, and I know it's one that we've done in the past and we'll probably do in the future because, again, these threats aren't going away. In fact, according to the statistics out there, they're growing each day. So protecting yourself, protecting your organization, educating your employees, it's super important and super relevant to the world that we're living in right now. So Derek, thank you very much. Appreciate you, again, taking the time to present this information, because, again, I think it's super important.
No problem. My pleasure.
Next month, we talked today about, locking the windows in your house, so to speak. And you lock down technology, but you kind of leave the windows open. Next month, we're going to talk about locking your front door and your back door. We're going to talk about locking technology and the roles that vulnerability scanning and penetration testing play into those, into your overall information security strategy. So keep an eye on our website, compassitc.com, for the date moving forward. That will happen in June. But thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be on our webinar today. Hope that you all have a great, happy, and safe Memorial Day weekend, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care, everybody.